Hi, today we are going to be applying the FX Warehouse Evil Clown prosthetic and prosthetic makeup kit that we purchased onto Becky here. FX Warehouse is based out of Philadelphia. I've been using them since about 96, 97, and I really recommend them. They have everything you need for full professional makeup effects, supplies, and today you'll see how we apply a basic pre-made prosthetic from this really cool kit that we have here. So today we're going to be using the Wuchi foam prosthetic from FX Warehouse, and it's the Evil Clown, as you can see. And here is the foam latex prosthetic. It's got pretty decent edges. I've already removed the eyes, the nostrils, and I've already cut the teeth apart. And then I'll just make application a little easier. The prosthetic makeup kit that you purchase comes with some 99% alcohol, and you'll see when we use that, makeup wedges, a stipple sponge, a powder puff, and some glue remover and the glue, as well as the makeup, a little bit of blood, and this really cool little brush kit. So what I've added is a couple incidentals. We've got the wigs, we've got a couple different styles, we've got some Q-tips, a pair of scissors that I use to trim, some cuffs, paper towels, and because I'm going to use this makeup on her today, but I may want to use it on other people, I've also used a palette and a palette knife, and I have a couple little extra brushes just in case. But everything you see here, you can get, I believe, everything at FX Warehouse. Cool. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to I've already pre-fit the piece, but we're going to put it right up to her. Close your eyes, please. And we're going to get an idea of where we want this. And I'm going to I've got some baby powder on the sponge. Keep your eyes closed, and you can see we've got a little mark there. So I'm going to continue So now I got an idea of where the prosthetic's going to lie. You can open your eyes now. So you'll notice that I always tell her when she can and can't have her eyes open, because once I start the gluing process, I don't want her to accidentally glue her eyelid open. So when I'm gluing around the eyes especially, I'll have her keep them shut, and then I'll powder them and let her know that she can open them up, and we kind of test to make sure they're not going to be glued or uncomfortable. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the medical adhesive. So we are using from FX Warehouse Pros-aide adhesive. Some people call it Pros-aide. It's really, there's no right or wrong way. So we're going to put a little bit into a cup, and like most medical adhesives, it is a contact cement, but so we don't have too much trouble removing it, and it's for easier removal, we're just going to do it just on her face. So we're going to do what is called the hinge method, and we're going to put a line of glue right down the center. So I'm going to avoid the eyebrows because it's just really difficult to remove it from the eyebrows. And also you can see that I'm not going to the edge. I'm going to save the edges for last. I'm going to go around the nose into the Cupid's bow. And I know the prosthetic ends right about at her chin. So, and then going to use this powder line if you want this to stay on all day or all night for a haunt or a party, I would actually recommend putting a little bit of glue on the inside of the prosthetic, but not up to the edge, just what I did on her face, but on the inside of the prosthetic and her face. Let them dry for a second and then press it on. It's just got to be a little extra careful. If you put it on and you don't like the positioning, you can use a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and it'll release the glue. When the alcohol evaporates, the glue will become sticky again. So the reason they call it the hinge method is you can hinge the prosthetic. And again, I'm not going to the edge. I'm going to avoid her eyebrows too a little bit. Keep your eyes closed, please. You want to be careful of the amount of glue when you're working around the eyes. because you don't want any drips. Looking for any areas that aren't sticking. So these are generic, so they fit pretty much any shaped face, and you can kind of push and pull the foam latex within reason a little bit. You know, if her hairline was lower, I would trim this ahead of time, but everything looks pretty good. So I'm just going to finish up this half. So now I'm going to do the powder edge on this side, and then on the other one. Okay, so now you can see there's the powder line along the side of her face really well. If you want to turn your hand this way a little bit. So you can see that line. So as I fold this over, I'm going to just put the glue almost right up to that line. You can use a brush for the glue, but I like using Q-tips. It's just a little easier. I'm going to hinge this. I'm pulling the cheeks kind of backward when I glue them down a little bit. And the reason is I don't want any major buckling to the foam or wrinkles that aren't on purpose to be there. Okay, so now I've got the basic piece glued down. I'm going to go through and I'm going to try to get the edges and any kind of weird wrinkles or buckles I'm going to remove. I'm going to try to use a little alcohol to free up this one little edge here. There we go. Once the alcohol evaporates, it just leaves just the glue again. So what's nice is the way this is sculpted, and the reason it fits almost any face is you can always do what's called a dart and put a little triangle under the chin and kind of pull it together, and that's a really nice feature. And so now we're going to start the edges. So you can see I'm going to pull down, and I want to get the glue under the prosthetic, and then I'm going to kind of brush it up. You don't want to go left and right, it can create all kinds of weird wrinkles, and your edges are pretty important. I mean, if you have a bad edge, it's really hard to make a makeup convincing. So I'm not going to go too much in her hairline. She's wearing a wig, so I don't want to go into her hair and make it difficult to remove there. This process of just doing the edges can take, 20-30 minutes. It could take you an hour, but take your time, because that's what sells the piece. Before I do the eyes, I'm going to do kind of a heavy powder, and this is just to set the glue and make sure nothing falls in if her hair comes down, or when we're putting the wig on or doing the makeup, that nothing sticks into it. So now we're going to do her eyes. So again, this is really important that when we do someone's eyes, we let them know to keep them shut and do not open them until we want them to. Because you don't want to drip glue in the eyes. So I'm going to switch to a finer brush. Actually, I'm going to use a little Q-tip, since that's probably what you'll have. So with the eyes, we're just going to kind of lift up. I'm kind of pushing the piece away from her eye and gluing it away. closer one more. So I'm gonna go in with the powder brush. This kit comes with a neat little brush here. And I'm just gonna use that. I really want to make sure there's a nice amount of powder. Not too much, you don't want to get powder in their eyes. And we just have one more area left to glue, and that is around the mouth. So what's cool with this is the teeth are already there, so we're actually hiding their whole lips. So we're just gonna, see, it's glued on there pretty well from when I glued everything. I'm not gonna mess, you don't want to get glue in their mouth. And I believe that's all we're gonna need to do for the gluing. So now we want to go through and we're going to take a little bit of alcohol on a Q-tip, and we're going to look for any kind of like edges that are a little funny. And if you saturate the foam a little bit, you don't want too much alcohol on your Q-tip. Now what we want to do is the foam latex is a bit porous, so we're going to put a thin layer of Pros-aide over the whole thing, powder really well, and then we're going to start the makeup process. So I'm just going to use one of my wedges. Whenever you're using a makeup sponge, you don't wipe. You're basically blotting or stippling is, I guess, the better word. So I'm just going to dip some Pros-aide. It doesn't need to be a lot. You can see we're just putting a thin amount, and we want to keep our eyes closed, and we're also not going to let her move her face while we do this, because with all this glue we don't want the piece to stick to itself. And we're going to go a little bit under her skin, and that's another nice thing, is this is going to blend the piece out into her skin a little bit. This is a really good beginner's piece because you're not gluing around the lips. It'll fit pretty much any face within reason. Okay, so that's it. So you can let it air dry, or you can use a hair dryer. We're gonna just put it on low. And you're gonna notice whenever we use a hair dryer, I'm keeping my hand here, and it's to block, like, say, her ear, the air going in her nostril. But it's also, if my hand gets hot, I know I need to lower or pull it back. And always keep a hair dryer moving. And you can also see I'm also always pointing it this way so her hair doesn't get blown into it. So now I'm gonna want to heavily powder everything. And this is to stop anything from sticking. You can hear the powder puff kind of sticking to it a little bit. So we're gonna add more powder. And use this nice little brush here and just brush some powder into all the creases that we just put glue in, as well as her skin. So now that this is ready, Becky, why don't you start moving your face around and just making some evil faces. Move your brow. You can see how great this movement is. That's really creepy. So now we're going to start, and we're going to base her out in some white. All right, so now it is time to base her out. So we've got this great little clown rubber mask grease wheel from Grabtobian that Thea sells over at FX Warehouse. Rubber mask grease paint is what you need for foam latex. You can use other materials, but regular cream makeup will not work on both the skin and the foam, and it'll look bad. So the kit is just really what you need. So what I'm going to do is, because I want to maybe use this on someone else later, I'm going to use my palette knife, and I'm just going to scrape off and put it onto my palette. I know that I'm going to need quite a bit, so normally I wouldn't take this much out. And I'm just going to put this on the palette, kind of spread it around, make sure there's no lumps. So again, what I want to do is I want to like kind of pounce, and I want to stipple the makeup on. I don't want to smear, because then you're going to get all these uneven marks. So this process is just going to take a bit of time. She's just going to keep her eyes closed, and you can see I'm stippling. Just watching her hair. Now she's going to have a wig, so I'm not going to go too crazy up into the hairline, but I do want to make sure I get it in all these little creases, and I can go back over this as many times as I want. I'm probably going to do 2 passes. You're going to see I'm constantly twisting my sponge. It's a little trick. And that way you don't get any hard lines from the sponge, because the sponge is kind of a square. You can actually trim the sponge edge, but for this, because it's going to be one solid color, it just doesn't matter. I'm not going to put white on the nose, because I know the nose and say the lips don't need the white there, because they're going to be other colors. So what we're going to do now is, before I do the next layer, I'm going to powder everything. And what this does is kind of sets the makeup and allows the next layer to go on top and cover, and not just push the makeup around. And we can go heavy because it's white. For a clown, I would actually use baby powder. I'm using colorless powder, which will be beneficial in some of the next stages with the colors, but overall, I think baby powder is just a nicer touch for this character. But we still want to go over with one more complete layer of the white. So I'm not going to do her ears. I'm actually going to clean those off a little bit, and the reason is she's going to be wearing a wig. If you want to do the ears and you want to make it look like they are like a full clown, and not just somebody who's like turned into an evil clown, you would want to get all the way in there with a brush and get some makeup in there. Okay, so now that we've got the base white on and we've powdered it, we're going to go on. I mixed a little bit of black into this, and I'm going to use a stipple sponge, and you can see it puts a little bit of texture, and this is going to help with our edges and just give a little bit of life back in, so it doesn't look just like a mask. And this is super subtle. And it's one of those things where you may not even totally notice this on camera, but it'll just make it a little bit more lively. So you could just go with flat clown white, but I decided I want to go with more like this is a living, like this mask has turned her into a creature as opposed to just an evil kind of clown wearing guy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and stipple just some white over it with the other side of the sponge, just to kind of give a little bit of everything. It's going to kind of blend some things in. Just anywhere where I think maybe there's a little bit too much gray. I'm going to powder now. So you just put a little powder in and you just kind of rub it together. And this is just setting the layers of makeup. So as I add more makeup, it doesn't get muddy. It actually goes over the color that was previously on. Okay, so I'm going to pick a color that I want to kind of start messing with. Take a little bit of this black. And this is where we're going to be extra careful. I'm just going to kind of get it in some of these creases. Be careful you don't get it into the teeth. So you can see I've gotten this into the creases a little bit, and anywhere else I need black. So I'm going to go up into her nose. Just going to kind of get some black under there. And you'll see why in a second. So now I'm going to start with some red for the lips. And what I want to do is I'm going to use a sponge. And we're going to do a thing which is called dry brushing. So I'm going across. I'm kind of getting in the creases. I'm going to go in with a brush in a second. But what I'm doing is trying to get some like depth to these cracks so it looks like it's not just red lips. All right, so now I want to kind of paint in the nose. There's a lot of texture on this nose, so you want to make sure that you get all these little holes. You don't want too much popping through, but it's white popping through, so again, it looks like, you know, this creature has painted his or her nose. So I want to finish what I started. So I'm going to finish the nose first, and then I'll finish up the lips. I'm not going to worry about getting a little blood on the teeth because of one of the final steps with this cool character. So you can see the black that I put in the creases is starting to give some texture to the lips. So they're not looking just painted. You can see we're getting some dimension to them. So pretty much I just want to clean the edges up now. So I'm switching to a different brush that I have. And then I'm going to take a little pink. So I'm not going to powder most of these colors now because I want these to look like grease paint over this creature's face. So I'm starting to shadow in here. I took a little bit of the red, I kind of just give it a little bit of shadow. I want a little bit of this black. I'm just going to kind of blend some colors here now. And look for like any major creases. You can see it's not a huge different color than everything else I'm doing. I'm just mixing the black and the red and the gray all together. And if you get any little blemishes, you just take your sponge, the little white, you can kind of put a dab there, kind of cover that up a little bit. Okay, so now we want to do the eyes. So when you clean your brush, you can use alcohol between colors. Just make sure it evaporates. So this piece has this really neat like scar type thing that you can just dry brush over. That's where you just go over the highlight points. All right, so now I'm going to mirror the other eye. So now we're going to do these little cheek circles here. If you want to turn that way, please. You can go blue or red, and you'll see the package design has these outlined in black. And then I'm going to take my detail brush. Run it around and use that to actually also clean up the edge a bit. Okay, so now when you're turned that way, we're going to outline, there's this little line in the mouth. And this really sets off the makeup, the mouth. And we don't want to forget the eyebrows. We want to now maybe finish this off, the piece. So what's really cool with this kit is it also comes with some blood, because you can't have a fake clown or an evil clown without some blood. So I'm taking the stipple sponge that we used, and I'm just going to cut off the makeup side of it. You got this really neat Muron gel blood. So I'm going to take the clean end of this. I'm going to pour a little bit of this gel blood. Actually, I'm going to put it on the bottom of this cup purposely so I don't have to get my fingers all inside the cup bloody. It's a really nice and thick blood. Don't need a lot. I'm going to start with a Q-tip. And because this is in her mouth, we can really want to make it look like she's been eating children at the park, at the birthday party. Get it right up in the corner there. It makes it look like her mouth goes up even further. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want to get all the teeth covered in blood, because then it's going to cover up the teeth and it's going to lose some of the effect. And finally, I'm going to take my little stipple sponge. Just going to make it just in one side. Make it look like she's been chomping on something. Now, we've got a basic clown, but it's missing one thing. Okay, so we've got the makeup down and we've added the wig, and you will now see our beautiful Becky the clown. And here we go. I like this wig actually because it's it's nice and creepy. You can see the blood dripping. So now this is the coolest part about a prosthetic. Becky started making crazy faces in it, mean faces, movie. You can see all this moves. Scrunch your brow down, and then raise it up. Raise one eyebrow. I don't know if you can see that, but now, I mean, this is awesome because now you can see, like, she's like can talk and she can move, and it looks nice and creepy. So now we're gonna cut, and I'm gonna come back to another wig just to give you an idea of different styles. So now you can see the classic rainbow wig. This, I think, is actually, oh, this is great too, because now it just really, the blue, what's nice is I was able to set the blue into the blue. And it also kind of pops the colors a bit more. So as you can see, she's making all kinds of faces. And here we go. This is a really easy, basic clown prosthetic from Wuchi. With the professional prosthetic makeup accessory that you can get also at FX Warehouse as a kit, and I really recommend it. It's really great, especially with Halloween and the haunts coming up right now. Check it out. Thanks.